Hi everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today we're going to be focusing on building our basement environment. We'll split this up into a number of sections. We'll build the environment first and then we'll do some optimization of those meshes and start to build our textures and then export into Unity. So it should take us around an hour today, so let's just get started. I've started off a new Blender file and this is just the basic file that you start with, and we've got a cube, so we can use this cube as our room. So let me just make sure that I've got screencast keys still on, so down here you'll be able to see what I'm pressing. I'm just pressing N to open up this panel here, and we'll use the dimensions to set the room. So we'll have a 10 meter by 10 meter room by 4 meter high, and that's created as a nice room. And I'm just going to jump into side view here, so that's numpad 1, and select our mesh, and I'm just going to move this up to be aligned with the floor, so that 0 is on the floor, which it will be inside Unity as well. And then one of the things I like to do straight away is turn on backface culling. So by default this will be turned off, so if you jump into the shading drop down here, we can turn on backface culling, and that will work exactly like Unity. So Unity will cull all your back faces. And we'll have this room will provide a good example of that. So at the minute you can see this cube, but if we jump inside, nothing is there, and obviously we want these walls to be inside. So each of these faces has got a normal on it, and that determines where the light hits on the face. So if we just jump into tab mode and we press spacebar, now I use spacebar a lot to find what I'm looking for. So we're looking for flip normals, and that will point all the normals inside the room. So you can see now when we jump inside the room that all these normals are facing us, and we can actually see the room. The other nice thing about this is if we zoom out, when we're modelling things inside this room, we'll be able to see through the walls and exactly what we're building. So we've got our room, and we're going to need some way to access this room, so we'll use some stairs. I'm going to use the 3D cursor here. And the 3D cursor is useful for making sure that when you add a new mesh that it adds into the place that you want it. So we know I'm going to place our stairs somewhere in this corner, so we'll just click around about here, and we'll use Shift and A, which will bring up this menu for adding any new objects, and we're going to add in a cube mesh. I've actually got some reference photos inside here, so if I pull up some reference photos, I just downloaded a few pictures of basements to give us some ideas as to when we go in, and we're going to build stairs similar to these sort of stairs here. So we'll start with the metal bar first. I'm just using S to scale this down to round about where I want on the width. Now just pressing full stop on here will zoom me close to the object. In Unity it's F, but in Blender it's full stop. I'm sure you could change that if you wanted to, but I tend to keep Blender settings the same as they are. If you jump into side view here, we can start to place our, just getting confused as to where we are there. I'm just going to move this up to be in line with the top and across, and that's created our metal bars. Now some of the things we'll do while we're building these meshes is just optimize them a little bit as we go, so we don't have to do it all later. And one of the main optimizations, mainly for your texture sizes, is removing any faces that are not going to be needed. So if we were to bake this texture out later, this face would actually take some space up on our texture, but nobody's ever going to see it. So I tend to just, while I'm going through, just delete these faces. So you'll probably see that happening quite a lot. So just delete the faces that are not going to be in view, because they're just going to be taking up space. And we obviously need two sides for here. So into modifiers, add a modifier and add an array modifier. Now that will create us one extra object, and we can just adjust this slider until it's positioned where we're happy. So that actually looks fine. And next we'll need to create some stairs. So again, I'm just going to get the 3D cursor and place it roughly in the middle and add a new cube. This will be the first step, and I'll just get the sizing correct for about where we want. That looks fine. Jump into edit mode and let's create the first step. So I'm just going to drag these faces until I'm happy with them, and we're just going to visually mark all this up. We could do it more accurate, but we don't necessarily have time for that, and I don't think we actually need it for here. So I'm just going to move this first step till it's roughly in place as to where I want this first step to be. If we have a quick look at here, you can see they're actually sticking all the way out from the bars, so let's bring them up. And then there's a connecting bar. They actually look quite wide compared to the other ones, so let's just bring them down. That should do, and we just need to create our connecting bars now. They're actually a bit thin maybe, so let's just move these out until they're a bit closer. I'll do this in top view. There we go, that's fine. And let's create our connecting bars. So our bars look like they go from the front of the step and just into the metal there. So let's put our 3D cursor where we want. And I'm staying inside this one mesh so that when we're adding this new cube, it stays inside this mesh, and that will help us with our array modifier that we're about to do. Again, let's just delete these faces because they're we're not actually going to need them. So delete the face and down on here as well. And I think it's a little bit wide at the minute. I'm just going to do this in wireframe mode just so I can see through this step. Now if I switch into edge select, now I want to select this entire edge here and move it over to this bar. So if I just hold down Alt and click on the edge, that will select the edge loop that we actually want. So jump into top mode and we can just move this. So I'm just going to move it so it's roughly placed inside where we want it to be. I think that actually looks fine. Yeah, that looks good. Now if I press L, that will select all the links inside there. So rather than create a new one over here, I'm just going to duplicate this with Control and D, and that will create me a duplicate object. And we can do exactly the same thing again on here. So let's just move this inside there, and that looks fine. Switch back into this view, and yeah, that's great. I'm sure there will be some architectural engineers freaking out about the way we're putting these stairs together, but let's not worry about it. For our purposes, this is fine. So before we add our array, there's if we look at this scale here, Blender thinks the scale of this object is 0.717, and we want that to be 1. Now you'll often find issues sometimes in Blender where it's not acting exactly how you're expecting it to, and a lot of the times it's due to this rotation and scale. So if we press Ctrl and A, it brings up this menu, and we'll just apply the rotation and scale, and you can see that set the scale of this object to 1. So now when we add our array modifier, it will act how we're expecting it to act. Now obviously we don't want to go sideways, we want to go up. So I'm just going to jump into side mode here and add in and adjust these, so we'll come back a little bit and up until we're round about where we're happy, and that looks fine. And let's just add some more steps in. One less, I think. That looks good. Maybe just increase that distance a little bit. Actually, I think we were happy where we were. So we've got our steps inside here now. I'm just going to pause the recording. Now at the minute we can't actually get out of this room because we would walk straight into the ceiling. So let's create a cut inside our ceiling. Now this is one of those cases where we don't want backface culling because we want to be able to see it. And if we select our room, we're just going to quickly cut out part of our ceiling here. So to do that, we'll use the knife tool in edit mode. So if we just select our knife, and we'll cut from about here, and we don't have to be super accurate with this, but we'll try to be as straight as possible, and just press return to assign it. Select our face, so we've got this new face here now, and we can just delete that face, and that actually looks about right. Yep, I think that's fine. So we've now actually got a way of exiting the room. Apparently people will be able to fall in, but I think that's fine. And we need some way of holding these walls up now, so we're going to create these struts. So if we look back at our reference photos, I quite like these sort of beams, so we've got, I think these are called joists, and these beams holding it up, so let's create some of those. Again, we'll use our 3D cursor and we'll place it roughly where I want to start, so about here, and just add in a cube. Now we'll be using cubes quite a lot. It's the, you should really, when you add your first mesh, you should be looking for the thing that most represents it. This obviously is a cube. Let's select our face here and let's just move this up to round about where we want it. So we're going to have, let's turn the back face coming back on. The other thing is quite nice is cavity. That gives you quite a nice view, and shadow is sometimes nice to see as well. Just makes this view a little bit better to work into. So I think we're just going to go there and using our side view. And again, we're just going to delete these faces because they're not going to be on view, so we're not going to need them. Let's make these around about 30 centimeters, and I think the height is actually fine where we are. Yep, I think that's fine. So again, apply our rotation scale and add a array modifier. Now I'm going to go for 3 here, but obviously I don't want them going sideways. So I can just adjust this, we'll make that one, so this one meets in the middle here. And we want some more over here, so we can add another array modifier on top of here, and we'll make this go sideways, just really into whatever position we're happy with. That looks fine. Let's add our beam across the top. Again, we're going to start with a cube and let's place that across on that wall. So let's just move it actually over to where we want. And these beams are going to come all the way through the wall, so we're not going to need this face, and we're not going to see the top, so we can delete all these faces here. And we want these to be a little bit wider than there. I'm going to just it's a bit smaller, 0.5. That's nice. And just drop this on top, a little bit inside. That will mean that we're definitely intersecting there. Into edge mode and Alt and A again to Alt and left click to select those, and just pull these outside of the wall. It's created a beam for us. It looks like it's not quite centered on these views here. There we go. And again, let's apply our scale, add in an array modifier, and let's move this across until we meet on these beams. It's fine. I think we're not going to have enough room here for a joist, so I'm just going to shift and click and we'll drag these down so we've got actual space for our joists to go up above there. And the nice thing about working in this array modifier is anything we change to this will automatically happen on the other ones. So if we move this up, you'll see all the other ones move up at the same time, so we don't have to model 6 separate objects. That's good. And now let's add in our joist. So we'll click on the ceiling here, add in a cube, and I think let's again set the size, so maybe 20 centimeters wide. And we can again delete some of these faces that we're not going to need. But first, let's pull them all the way through the wall, so we'll have them running this way. It's fine. And again, let's delete these faces. And move this beam into the position for our first one, so we'll have it around about here, and that looks good. And add in our rotation scale, let's add in our array modifier, and let's just adjust our spacing until we're happy. We'll probably space these out a little bit more. Good. and reduce the number of beams. So if we have a quick look in the room now, they're not meeting up, we'll not put them on top of the actual other beams. So let's make sure we do that. Let's just drag these until we see them intersect. Good. And we can select these edges here. This one, and this one, and just select the right one, and just put them in line with the top of the wall. So if we look inside our room now, I think that looks good. Perfect. Now these beams look a little bit sort of regular at the minute. If we look at the reference photo, there's dents and there's bends and knocks and stuff inside this wood. There's a number of ways we could do this, but we're just going to do a very quick way. Let's press Ctrl R, and that will add in a new loop cut around here. And if we scroll wheel up, that will add in a number of cuts. So we'll just add in 6 there. And then we'll start to just move these edges and faces around a little bit, so we're not going to be too precise. We're just going to give these a little bit more shape, so just drag some of these out a little, just creating a bit of irregularity really inside this wood. And we can do the same with some pixels, sorry, some vertices, not pixels, until we get a sort of more damaged wood look. And that looks good, they're not quite so regular now. And we'll do the same with this top one, so we'll just add in a few here and start to move some of these vertices around until we create a bit more of a damaged wood sort of look. Let's do some of the faces as well. Sorry, the edges. Just find adding these little bit of irregularities just adds to the realism just a little bit. Like, not everything in the world is completely nice and flat. There's irregularities and bumps, and that's actually what gives it visually, makes it far more appealing. And one thing this might have done while we were adjusting this is move this this modifier, which it has, because we've adjusted this first one's width. So if we just adjust this modifier again until we're happy with the placement, I think that looks fine. So that's give us some bit of irregularities inside this wood. We could maybe go a bit more extreme with this. Actually, it's not looking too irregular. Just gonna scale a few of these down a little bit. Excellent. And again, let's just put this back into place. Okay, I think that looks fine. So that's our beams, that's supports, and that's the joists. So we need to start adding a few more interesting features. So we've got actually the basis of a room here, but it's very empty, and I'm sure we would have stuck stuff down here. We would have brought stuff down for storage. So let's just start to fill out some of these spaces. Underneath the stairs, typically people will add some cardboard boxes or something. So let's just create some quick cardboard boxes. These are very simple to do. We'll just add a cube, move it up so it's just touching the floor. Again, we're not going to need this bottom face because no one's going to see it. It's placed on the floor. So let's delete the face. And let's create some sort of inside of the box. So if we press I, that will allow us to inset this here. And then E for extrude will extrude that face. So I'm just going to extrude that face down, and I think that looks fine. And next thing we need to do, if we look at some of our reference photos, we should have some cardboard boxes in here. Here we go. Is we've got flaps on these cardboard boxes that allow you to seal up the boxes. So we'll just create a few and we'll adjust them. So I think if we create a loop cut just like we did with the beams over here, and then we can start to move these faces. So select this face here, press E to extrude, and that will create our face. I'm just going to move them down into different positions. That's it. And this one, we've got a nice open cardboard box there. And let's just create a few more. So 3D cursor we want, mesh, cube, scale, move it up until it's on the floor, delete the face that we don't need, select the top, inset, extrude, and maybe we'll make this a closed box. So instead of putting the loop on the outside here, we'll put it on the inside and just extrude a couple of these faces out. So extrude, lift it up a little bit because the boxes tend to just be sticking out. And let's go for one more. Maybe we'll do a mixture of sticking out, and maybe we'll make this one more rectangular. And one thing to note, now that we've made this more rectangular, if we inset, we might not be able to see it in such an extreme example, but these faces, this inset value will not be exactly the same. So before we do that, we can apply our rotation and scale before we inset, and then all these extra faces that you create will be the same size. So it's always worth noting that on a more extreme example you'll be able to see. So we will, let's add in our loop cut on the outside, and maybe we create these big ones sticking out and then the little ones inwards. So extrude these, move it down a little bit, there we go. And we'll create another loop cut on the inside, and we'll use this to create these internal ones. Maybe this one goes down. There we go, we've got some a few cardboard boxes over here. What else can we add in here? I think we typically would have some sort of shelving, so maybe we'll just put some shelves over here. So we can do this again with the cube. Noticing we're using quite a lot of cubes here. So scale this down. I'm going to scale on the y-axis just to bring this out. And make it the sort of size that we're going for here. So I think, does that look about right? That looks fine. I'm not going to see this back face, so let's delete that. That looks good, and let's add in an array modifier, and let's go for 3 shelves, and we don't want them to be going into the wall, we want them to be going up the wall. And then just position these where we want. That's fine. And maybe some old pieces of wood back here that we've been using. Again, add another cube. Stretch this piece of wood out, a nice big piece of scrap wood. I'll just create a little pile of wood here. that's fine. I've got a few pieces of wood. And what else do we want in here? Maybe we're going to be having our drum set round about here, I think, and maybe down at the front is somewhere to sit. So let's do something a little bit more interesting. Right, we've done enough cubes for now, so let's maybe do some sort of beanbag. Let's open up a new browser and let's just have a quick look at beanbags, just so we've got an idea in our heads as to what we're actually going to be making. Okay, so they've all got these sort of dints inside them. Yeah, I quite like this one, so let's go for this. It's quite round with this dent in the middle. So if we add in a new sphere, let's go with a UV sphere. You can adjust the number of faces to what you want, but I think actually we're going to be doing some sculpting on this object, so I think 32 is probably about right. We're not going to need any of these bottom faces because they're going to be on the floor. So if we jump into wireframe mode, that means I can now select all the faces behind here as well. So just pressing B to box select and select all these faces, and you can see we've selected the whole cube, and let's just the whole sphere, sorry, and let's just delete those faces. So we've now got half, I guess it's called a hemisphere, and let's just quickly jump into sculpting mode. There we go. And what we're going to do is just sort of create that dent inside. Now using this draw tool, you can click with the left and that will pull it out, control click and that will push the mesh back in. Now it's not adding any more vertices or any detailing into here. One thing it is doing, you can see, is it's drawing on both the left and right of the model, and we probably just want to turn that off. So if we turn off symmetry here, then you can see, yeah, that's it, we're drawing on only one side, and we'll adjust our tool size a little bit, and we're just going to make it a bit bigger, just so we can put this indent inside here. So I'm going to hold control and just click around and drag a few times until we're sort of happy with the spacing that we've put inside. It's worth just jumping around. There's no real, we're just going to move these faces until we're actually happy with them. I actually think that looks okay, but this bottom bit is a bit uniform, so let's just start to mess this up. I'm just going to move around, click, bit of shift click, control click, move it in and out. Sculpting itself is quite an art form, but it's actually relatively easy to do a sort of simple shape and take that sphere and turn it into something a bit more beanbag like. One thing I know is when we sculpt, it can have the effect of moving some of these vertices around, which you can see it's lifting them off the floor. So if we just select that edge loop, scale, press Z and press 0, that will move them all onto the same thing. And also you can see we've got like a little bit of a curve at the bottom where it meets the floor, so I'm just going to scale those in, double tap G just to move these up, and that looks fine. Let's jump back into modelling mode, full stop, we'll zoom us into the view we want. It's kept the tabs unfortunately, so there we go. And let's just drop that onto the floor, and I think that looks okay. It's a nice beanbag, so much so I think I'm going to have two, and I'm just going to rotate this round a little bit, just make it look a little bit different. There we go, excellent. One other thing, maybe we've done a throw on top of here. Now this is quite a fun thing to do, it's quite easy, but it actually looks quite impressive, at least in my opinion it looks quite impressive. So on one of these we're going to add some sort of cloth. So we'll start by adding a plane, and let's just move that plane up off of there. Now, if we quickly, it's actually very easy to do. If we quickly jump into the physics section for this plane and we click cloth, Blender will add everything in there that we actually need to do for cloth, and we can animate this through. So if we click into animations, press full stop and jump into here, turn on all this stuff. These views are separate per tab up here. And now if we press play, it will calculate all the physics needed on this plane, and we'll see our cloth. Now you saw there that it just fell straight through, and that's because it's actually not got any objects to collide with. So if we select here and add on collision and then press play, you'll see it collide with the beanbag there. Now it's sliding off because we don't have enough geometry on here. As far as it's concerned, it's just one plane which it can't bend. So if we go into edit mode on here and search for subdivide, that will add us in some new planes. Let's just subdivide a few times. Inside here we can just increase. That looks about right. This looks fine. And again, now let's press play this time, and you can see we get this sort of nice cloth effect. However, we can just quickly look through these frames and decide which one we most like. I think that looks nice. Right, that looks fine. And if we jump into our modifiers, you've got a cloth modifier on here. So if you just press apply, that assigns all that from that animation into there and removes your collision. So jump back into modeling. We've got this nice cloth on here, and just take this collision off this because we no longer need it. Very nice. So we probably just want some things on these shells now. So let's just finish off our environment over here, and we'll do that by adding some paint cans. So very simply, we're just going to add in a cylinder, and we're going to reduce the number of vertices on here. It's sort of a background object, it doesn't need to take up this much size. And let's just place this onto our shelves. I think one thing we probably want to do is make sure we've not got this bottom face on, because we don't need it. So let's just delete that face. It's a little bit big maybe, so let's just shrink that down. Very good. And let's add in another array modifier. And very well organized cans, very well spaced out. And maybe we'll add in a smaller set of cans over here. The gloss paintings. I just won't have as many of these, maybe just two. Bring these a bit closer and maybe set it back a little bit. There we go. And some more simple things we can add onto these shells just to fill them up really is, let's add in some kind of storage box. Let's delete this face on the bottom. This probably will give us a good example of that inset faces. So if we look at our inset face now, it's not actually doing what I was expecting it to do, so just ignore me on there. Let's just apply this rotation and scale. Let's inset this in and extrude it down, and that will create us a very simple box. Let's duplicate this and have another one on this shelf above. Fine. I think we might want something on this floor, so I think I'm just going to duplicate a few of these cardboard boxes and just move them over as well. Adding a little bit of rotation just for a bit of difference. And there we go. I think we're done. We've got everything we need. Oh, actually, let's. What I want to do is have some sort of inspirational poster on here. So while we're drumming away, we've got somebody to inspire us. So let's add in a picture frame over here. With this sort of size, yeah, and delete this back face. Well, that's sticking out quite a long way, so let's grab that edge loop, bring it right in, select our front face here, insert that, extrude it back, and we've got our picture frame, and we'll stick our picture in there. So we've got pretty much everything we need in here now. So this picture frame is sticking out quite a long way, so let's put that into the wall and move this edge loop back. So if we quickly have a look inside here in rendered mode, we'll notice one issue that we've got, which is it's extremely dark down here. In fact, the only light that's getting into this room is coming from down these stairs over here. So let's create some lighting coming around our room. I'm just going to quickly look at our reference photos again. These look like they're just dangling down. There's no lights there or there. There's some box lights on the wall, strip lighting, normal lights up here. I quite like these where we've got this nice wire running through and the lights just dropping down. So why don't we create something like that? It'll be something a bit different for us to model with. So to do those sort of wires, we can use a bezier curve. So let's just start our wire around about here and add in a bezier curve, and let's turn this back face culling on. And yep, let's rotate this object in. Let's just get it aligned a little bit better to the positioning and the view that we want. There's a dog getting very excited there. Thought someone was coming to see it. So we need to add some thickness onto this curve. So if we jump into the curves section here and into geometry, we can add some bevel onto this curve. So 0.2, that looks about right. Now if we jump into edit mode, I'm not an expert with bezier curves, but you can adjust and mess around with these handles to your heart's content, and you'll see what's happening. So if we select here and move, you can see moving this around will adjust the curve. Moving these handles will adjust the bend and positioning on those curves. So we're just going to use these handles and move around until we're sort of happy. So we want these curves to be in the wall, or actually just against the wall, not necessarily inside the wall. That looks good. We're just going to get this wire to sort of start inside the wall. Maybe it's run from somewhere else in the house. We'll go for a sort of up and down look, like the wire's being stapled against the wall and then it's sagged down a little bit. So we're happy with this sort of first one. If we just press E to extrude, and that will give us another curve to play with, and we'll just adjust these positionings until we're happy with where they are, trying to make sure that we're staying on that wall as much as we can. And we'll just run this all the way back here. That's good. And then maybe we're going to be playing the drum kit, I guess, round about here. So we want a nice light above us. So let's extrude this out and let's move the wire into the middle, and maybe attach it to this beam here and then into this one here. just adjust these handles until we get the shape that we want. A little bit bent over here, so let's just bring this back so it's not quite so bent. And yeah, I think that actually looks fine. Let's put some lights into the room, and we're just going to do something simple. We're just going to drop a light down here and add in a light bulb on the end. We're not going to be creating any fancy light fixtures, so let's just add in a cylinder mesh, and I'm just going to, we'll leave that at around about 16, that looks fine, and we're just going to turn off the cap fill. That will remove the faces that otherwise we would just delete, and we'll just drag that down until we're about happy with the size, and make that go inside this wire here. I'm sure our electricians wouldn't be massively happy with the way we're connecting our electrics here, but since it's that blender, we don't have to worry too much. I'm just going to drop that down, and let's quickly open Google and let's look at some light bulbs. And we'll just go for a plain sort of light bulb, really, nothing like fancy like this, but we probably need some sort of connection like this. So let's just aim for a standard light bulb, the kind of thing you might put into your basement, and the connection that we might need into there. I'm just going to use this bottom face here, and we're going to extrude down on the Z, scale it out, extrude, and this is just creating that light socket, the bit that the light bulb will actually screw into. I'm just checking this for scale, so it looks a little bit small at the minute, so I'm just going to select some of these faces and just scale these up. That looks good. So that's our sort of light socket and wire. We need a light bulb inside there now. I'm just going to drop this in somewhere close and add in a circle. I just wanted to make sure that we're only, when we add in this circle, that we've only got the right number of vertices. Now this light bulb is not going to need to be super detailed, but we don't want it to be quite smooth as well, so I think 16 vertices will do, and we'll drop it down to about 2 centimeters. At the minute we're sort of stuck in that wall over there, so let's just move this back out and try and get it roughly in place. Okay, so we're centered on our light socket. We've got our circle inside here. Now if we jump into edit mode and we select these this edge loop here, we can now just extrude this down, and you can see due to backface culling that this is actually the wrong way around. So just jump into here, flip our normals, and now we've got the correct way. So we're going to create the screw of the bulb first, and then we're going to drop into this glass. So that should do for the screw. And let's just have another quick look. So it sort of comes out in round and then meets at the bottom. So we'll select this edge loop here, extrude on the Z, scale this out a little bit, extrude, and we'll just keep extruding and scaling until we've got the sort of shape of a light bulb that we're happy with. And then just at the bottom here, I'm just going to press F, and that will create as a face. It's a very it's a very sharp sort of light bulb at the minute, so we can adjust that now by just moving these around a little bit until we're happy with the shape. So I'm just selecting the edge there, double tapping G, and that moves it across the line of the geometry. And it looks very small, so I'm just going to scale that right up, move that back into there. I'm going to add in another loop here that we can scale up. And you can see I'm not the world's most forefront expert at doing this, but it's we'll move this up due to the face here. Just going to delete that face while we keep messing with these edges. It's actually looking a little bit better now, so let's just extrude this down one more time and scale it right down. And if we look, we should just have a little space for a face, and that's actually not too bad. Scale wise, I think it looks fine. So let's take one of these and let's just create a few more light bulbs. So duplicate this across here, and another one at the back of the room. I'm just going to make sure we sort of set inside this wire. Okay, so we've got some light sources now, so we want to add in some actual lights. So let's drop it in a light and a point light. Placement actually looks okay. Duplicate another one of these. I'm just going to make sure that they're in line with where we want them, and we'll adjust this lighting later. For now, it's just to make sure that we've got some light in our room so we can actually see. So if we switch into rendered view mode now, we should actually have a nicely lit basement. It's extremely bright, but that will do for now, and I think we're almost there. We've got some light coming in, we're ready to move on. Oh no, we've got these joists sticking over our exit hole over here. So let's jump into modeling mode and let's correct that. So you will see that it's in an array at the minute, which is going to be difficult to adjust these. So we can apply this array and then we can modify these objects individually. Before we do that, I'm just going to add in a bevel modifier, and that will take some of these sharp edges at the minute, the 90-degree edges, which is a bit too sharp. So we're just going to add a quick bevel modifier in and reduce the size of that bevel down, and that will create us a few extra faces on here, which will just round off these edges a little bit so they're not quite so sharp. Apply your modifiers from the top down, and then that will have created all our separate meshes here, so we can now adjust these faces. So if we select all these edge loops where we want to move them back, and we'll just move these back in line with the just over these stairs here, and that should just about match up with the room. There we go. So that no longer sticks out. A quick look in rendered mode. And yeah, I think that looks fine. I think we're almost done. So why not join me in the next session, and we'll start to break down all these objects and create the materials and get them ready to go into Unity. So subscribe, like, comment, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.